Good morning and welcome to the Daily Cyber Briefing for Friday, the 15th of November. I'm Stephen Ridgway. 4 million plus WordPress websites are vulnerable to attack via a plugin. I know we talk quite a lot about vulnerable plugins for WordPress, and it is, I'm afraid, one of those, um, one of those solutions that requires regular, if not persistent, updating and checking and looking after. There is a vulnerability in the which plugin is it? Let me get this right. There's Really Simple Security. It used to be known as Really Simple SSL. It's putting 4 million websites at risk. The vulnerabilities tracked to CVE 2024 10924. And it opens up the website to the potential for unauthorized administrative access. The vulnerability affects versions 9.0.0 through to 9.1.1.1 of the plugin. And that also includes, by the way, Pro and Pro multi-site versions of the plugin. If exploited, if the vulnerability will allow attackers to remotely access any user account, including the administrative account, if the two-factor authentication feature is enabled. So this particular flaw has been allocated a severity score of 9.8, which does classify it as critical. So the developers of this particular plugin have provided a patch. So it is the patch actually was released yesterday. So if you are using this particular plugin in your WordPress environment, I would strongly recommend that you go and look now to see that you are running the right version. The updated version is 9.1.2. So anything in the 9.x stream earlier than 9.1.2 is vulnerable to this particular exploit. So as we've said before, and I will say it again, and I know you can always tell me to stop if you want to, but until then, right, WordPress is one of those environments where, yes, there are a lot of moving parts in WordPress. WordPress itself, there's the themes, the various plugins, there are lots of stuff going on. A lot of work's been done over the years to try and make it straightforward to patch and update all the various different components, and various things will update automatically if you set them for auto update. In practice, our experience at TSC is that that works well most of the time, but you can't rely on that being 100% solid for keeping all of the components of your WordPress environment up to date all of the time. So it is definitely worth having a set of scheduled manual checks to go in and make sure that nothing has got kind of left behind. It is also worth, on occasions like this, it is worth going in and making sure that this specific plugin has been updated or is updated. And if it isn't, prod it and make sure that it is catching up, because do occasionally get into situations where certain plugins should be updating but aren't, or certain, you kind of, it's a variance on the old dependency hell that those of us that have been around in this game for a long time used to go through when manually updating all sorts of things, years ago. Well, rather than break your website, the tendency of the WordPress environment is to hold back things that might potentially break other things. From what I can see, I can't dug into whether that's policy or not, but just in practice, mostly it'll keep itself up to date, but you can't rely on it. And whether something, a critical vulnerability, and this being 9.8 is pretty close to being as critical as you can get. It is worth checking. Right, whilst we're on the subject of things to check and update, there is a high severity flaw in PostgreSQL. I'm sure a DBA is now going to correct my. I should know, shouldn't I? Correct my pronunciation. Lord, I need more coffee, don't I? So this particular vulnerability is tracked as CVE 2024-10979. It has a CVSS score of 8.8. So that is pretty serious. It is down to the incorrect control of environmental variables in the PostgreSQL PL or Perl, and allows unprivileged database users to change sensitive process environment variables like path. Now that means, of course, excuse me, that means there is the possibility to force the solution to do all sorts of things via changing paths. So, access stuff that you shouldn't be able to access, all sorts of things that could be going on in there. There are patches available for versions 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17. So, which, if you are using this as part of your in any of your apps or part of any of the solutions that you are working on, it is definitely worth looking to make sure that you have upgraded to a non-vulnerable version. The article in the Hacker News sets out exactly which subversions are the ones to aim for. I'm not going to read you a long list of numbers; it doesn't really help. But yeah, so in order to avoid the potential for arbitrary code execution, worth having a look and updating or checking that your systems have updated to one of the non-vulnerable versions. There's an interesting piece of malware that's got a write-up in Bleeping Computer that I came across this morning. It's known as a glove info stealer, and it specifically bypasses Chrome's cookie encryption. Looks like it's a bit of malware that is under development at the moment. It doesn't look like it's a finished piece of work from what I'm reading. It is being distributed by phishing campaigns. The aim of this particular piece of malware is to steal and exfiltrate cookies from Firefox and Chromium-based browsers, so Chrome, Edge, Brave, Yandex Opera, and any others that maybe based on either of those two. It also looks to steal cryptocurrency wallets via browser extensions, and multi-factor authentication session tokens from Google, Microsoft, Aegis, LastPass, authenticator apps, and additionally, looking to steal password data from Bitwarden, LastPass, KeePass, and mail clients like Thunderbird. So there's quite a lot going on. It looks for sensitive information, 280 browser extensions, and 80 locally installed applications. So it is, as we're saying, this appears to be a work in progress. At the moment, it requires local admin privileges on the compromised system in order to execute the code necessary to steal the information. However, gaining local admin privileges on a device is not it's not trivial, but it's certainly not difficult to do, given the number of potential vulnerabilities on an endpoint that may well lead to local admin access. And there is a general feeling that local admin isn't, protecting local admin is not as important as domain admin. Well, that's kind of true. At one level, that's true. So long as you've risk assessed it, that might well be true. But there's an awful lot that can be done. And bearing in mind that if you chain things, starting out with local admin access on a Windows device could well lead to all sorts of other things. And this is a good example of it. So expect there to be updates, changes, and various other bits and pieces coming in the near future. The protections that are being bypassed were introduced in Chrome 127, which was from July this year, so they haven't been around long. Expect Chrome and Firefox to be working pretty hard to address any underlying vulnerabilities in this particular space. Keep your eyes open. In the meantime, just be cautious of what you're doing in your browser. Be cautious of your the usual phishing stuff. Is about the best you can do. Okay, so in other matters, 8 apps on the Google Play Store have been demonstrated to contain an Android Trojan. Article in HackRead sets out the details of what these particular malicious apps are. But basically, Split It, checks and tips, Flash Page Parser, Be Yummy, your cookbook, Memo Gen, Display Moving Message, Word Count, Goal Achievement Planner, Dual Text Compare, Travel Memo, Dessert Dreams Recipes, and Score Time, some of which are or were still on the Play Store at time of writing. Recommendation is obviously to check to see if you have actually installed any of those apps, and if you have, then firstly make sure you've deleted the apps, and secondly then it is worth checking your device to see whether there are other secondary secondary sets of malware that have been installed, various things that may be going on, the usual security checks that you should do, or potentially, even if it's a device that's important to you, get it rebuilt or get it replaced, depending on risk assess it, but basically do something about it. Don't just leave the stuff lying around. expect Google to be dealing with this stuff ASAP. Google take malicious software on the App Store seriously. It is, however, an absolutely mammoth task keeping on top of it. So it isn't surprising that stuff sneaks in. So, there is a little bit of cleanup that may be needed to be done. Even if they take down the apps, they don't, I believe, mandate app deletion on your devices. So you can still be running vulnerable apps, even if Google has spotted that they're vulnerable and taken them off the Play Store. And then finally from me today, an article in the Register is talking about Microsoft Power Pages misconfigurations exposing sensitive data. So Microsoft Power Pages is a low code software as a service platform, making it easy for organizations to build external facing websites on Microsoft infrastructure. The tool includes pre-configured role-based access controls and 3 out-of-the-box roles that can't be deleted or deactivated. Okay, so one of the, and this is a common error, what has been shown to be difficult to manage is what happens with the authenticated users role. So the majority of admins consider the authenticated user role to be kind of intrinsically internal, which is kind of true. If you run a simple AD environment, external users wouldn't be authenticated. Therefore, applying privileges to the authenticated user role is a perfectly reasonable thing to do. However, you've got to bear in mind that these are externally facing web apps or web solutions that are being created using Power Pages. So external users that are authenticated on your website are swept up in the authenticated users group. So subsequently, or consequently even, external users can pick up inappropriate permissions if those permissions have been allocated to authenticated users, assuming authenticated users are internal. Now, sounds much more complicated than it really is. But we've seen that, for example, an NHS supplier leaked employee data because it is actually quite difficult to understand what's going on with permissions. They're fiddly access controls. And it is apparently relatively common to find databases effectively dangling online with authenticated users having access to read data or change data within the database, including authenticated external users and not just authenticated internal users. So it's a very good write-up in the Register. If you have been using Microsoft Power Pages to create web solutions, it is worth a read, and it is worth thinking about. Excuse me. It's worth thinking about checking that the permissions that are set really are the permissions that you expect in this particular arena. Okay, that's all from me for today.